there. Mandy Friedman here, licensed professional clinical counselor, clinically certified domestic violence counselor, clinically certified trauma professional, level 2, the creator of SNAP, survivors of narcissistic and abusive personalities. And I'm here with my brother Andrew to talk about Succession, maybe for the last time.
Yeah, could be. This is the last episode of Succession, season 4, episode 10, With Open Eyes, Mandy. The vote to block the big deal is tomorrow, and Kendall, we join him as he's trying to secure votes. He's going over with his team, whose votes he needs to get. And one of the most important votes that he needs to get is Roman's, right? We don't know where Roman is. The last time we saw Roman, where was he, Mandy?
He was in the streets during a protest and was inviting violence upon himself as a form of punishment and self-harm. Of course, that's not how he characterizes what it was, and that's not what he says, but we know that that's what was going on.
It was a big fight that he won, apparently, which he tells us later on. Then we join Shiv. She's strategizing with Matsson and his team, and she's totally cool with selling out Tom. She has a conversation with Matsson about that. She describes him in a very interesting way that is like, some of these lines in Succession are just so fantastic, and this line is one of them.
Shiv calls Tom corporate matter and a highly interchangeable modular part. She also says he sucks the biggest dick in the room. In other words, he would be a great option for CEO, but he's not special. There's nothing unique about him. She's the one that has the unique qualities that they might be looking for. So she's really acting like she's open to options for CEO, but at the same time, of course she wants it. She's trying to act like she doesn't, but she definitely does. And right in that same scene, they're reading an article that is getting ready to be published or has been published. And the title of the article is Lucas Matsson Taking Over the World? But there's artwork that goes with it, and it looks like that she is bigger and above Matsson, and almost like that she is the puppet master pulling the strings. And you can see Matsson sort of really focusing on that and looking at it, and she notices it and starts to talk about, it's, he's like, it's all right, but you can just tell that it's got his attention.
You know that thing, Mandy, where someone who maybe says something offensive will often be like, oh, I was just kidding, and they're writing that line constantly where you're not really sure what they even mean half the time, because they always say they're kidding or they change opinions as soon as you disagree with them. Shiv is in that situation right here, and she is riding that line. She's like, yeah, I'll throw Tom under the bus, but I mean, he might be a good option, not a good option. He might be an option. She's kind of bargaining out loud with her emotions, and it is blatant insecurity. And, she looks rough here as far as how she looks in front of Matsson to me.
Well, she's being very directive. She's taking charge. And then she basically says, Tom is pliable. He's, he's moldable. He'll just do what you want him to do. Well, that might be attractive, actually. And I don't think she realizes that she's kind of screwing herself over here by the way she's describing him. Kind of comes back and bites her in the ass later.
Yeah, and that whole puppet master thing is a visual representation of that, just in case we didn't get it from the dialogue. It's fantastic. It turns out that Roman has escaped to his mother's house, Caroline, and I'm not sure where they're at, but it is beautiful. It's wonderful, and Peter's there. It's amazing because we get this moment where Caroline calls Shiv, all right? And she lets her know that, hey, Roman's there, but she doesn't say that. One of your brothers is here, but it's not Kendall. And so it's awesome because she decides she's going to go out there. Shiv's going to go out there. Maybe Caroline has ulterior motives. We'll find out. Everyone seems to.
Yes, of course, she's the one that rats Roman out. And we know that she has some motivation. At first, it just seems like she wants him out of her hair. But then there's always more to the story with her. Kendall calls and he starts picking up on that same message. She's trying to act like she's not telling him what's going on. She's trying to be coded and cryptic, but he sees right through it.
It doesn't take long during that conversation before he's like, all right, I'm on a plane. We also get this awesome moment where Shiv is on the plane. She's getting ready to leave, and she has a little conversation with Tom. And she kind of asks Tom, like, do you want to like get back together? And Tom, it is a very upsetting conversation to hear because of the way she phrases it. And Tom is kind of like, oh, you're finally in love. You're finally falling in love with me, but he says you're falling in love with our schedules.
Right, because when he tries to engage her in the conversation that she starts, she's like, well, yeah, it makes sense. It just would make sense. And right, exactly, for like scheduling, and he's like, oh, so you've fallen in love with our compatible scheduling. But she also says that in a way they're the devil that they know, is really what she was trying to say, that they've already said the worst things to each other. So in a way they know what each other thinks of each other, and that at least that's a known, and that there's kind of safety in that. So I'm the devil, you're the devil, I know. We can align somehow in competing with each other at the same time. They're comfortable doing that.
It's also Shiv hedging her bets again, and being wishy-washy again. And this is what she does throughout the series. Shiv arrives first. And this is amazing because when she shows up, Shiv's like, so Caroline's been taking care of it, your mom's been taking care of it. And he says, oh, Peter did my eye drops. And there's this whole thing about how Caroline doesn't like eyes. And so she didn't do anything for Roman. Peter has been taking care of Roman, and she won't mother Roman no matter what happens. It's amazing.
And isn't it interesting that that's where Roman went, was to his mommy? And remember, his biggest wound is his mother wound. That's his initial wound. We can tell through the way that he responds to things and his behaviors. We talked about it in the last episode of like the origins of his trauma being somewhere in like the toddler phase. And so when he is hurting, he goes to mommy, and mommy can't give him what it is that he's looking for still. And Peter, who's a total douchebag dipshit, still has more empathy and compassion and the ability to help take care of Roman than his own mother, because she doesn't like face eggs. Yeah. I just don't like eyeballs.
This is so funny. And Peter has ulterior motives too, we'll talk about. So, he wanted to do those eye drops because maybe this is going to mean an investment for him. We join Greg and Tom at a social event with Mattson and, the Vikings. And I'm not sure where they're at, but they talk about their future. And Tom threatens Greg. He says, I don't know. I think you're going to get knocked down to 20 or 30K, which, by the way, if you want to identify a douchebag, they refer to $1,000 as K. Anyone who says K after $1,000 or 20K, douchebag. Greg's very worried about his future, and that's important because of what's going to happen later on with Greg. When Kendall arrives, he immediately goes after Roman. Shiv kind of protects Roman. We see a little bit of shifting of the dynamics, right in front of our eyes. And that happens a lot in this like little trifecta of people that we're going to follow quite a bit during this episode.
Kendall is really aggressive and he's coming after Roman. Now, Shiv has multiple motivations here. She's protecting Roman, but she also knows that she needs to get Roman on her side, because at this point she needs his vote. And you can also see Caroline trying to shield them as well, and she doesn't want this big blow up to happen. She wants them to all get along and for there to not be any fighting. But yeah, Kendall's being pretty aggressive, and I think that's a really entertaining scene to watch.
I love the interaction because, like you said, that Kendall and Shiv have flown to this paradise, wherever they are, in order to get Roman's vote. And Roman says at one point, well, why don't I chop one of my arms off, both my arms off? You guys can each have one. They meet on the terrace in the evening that night, and Shiv is convinced that she's won, and we see more of this dynamic play out.
Shiv is really asserting herself, and she's gloating as if she's won, like you just said. But I feel like there's a bit of her trying to alpha here. She's trying to establish herself as the alpha. And Lucas is detecting that as well. She's a little alpha and a little too much for her position as a woman, especially a pregnant woman, to be telling a bunch of men what to do. In a way, she's continuing on with that with Kendall, like, sorry, you lost. I'm the big bad one now. I wish it were true for her in a way. See how passionate she is about it and how she really needed this win for her own self-esteem.
Kendall actually asks her to take it easy on him because she's gloating so much. He's like, hey, come on. Yeah, you got your hands around my throat, but you haven't won yet. And that is something she should know, by the way. Everything always changes. And so meanwhile, one of the most wild conversations of this whole episode is happening where Matsson is meeting with Tom. Now, why is he meeting with Tom? We heard earlier in the episode, we haven't mentioned it, but that he was maybe meeting with the guy from Volter from season 1. And they were thinking maybe that guy could be an alternate CEO. But now we see him meeting with Tom. Is Tom the alternate CEO too? Who knows? And then we see Tom has to sing for his supper. Matsson asks him to pitch himself, as the CEO. And the conversation is crazy. Matsson tests the water on cuckolding Tom for real. And Tom doesn't flinch. And he has a lot of interesting comments.
I would say this is one of the most important conversations of the entire series. If you're really concerned the whole time about who's going to be the successor, I think this is maybe the most important conversation. But what it reveals is the qualities that Tom has that makes him rise to the top, that makes him successful in the end in becoming the successor. But the way he describes himself to Lucas is basically the same way that Shiv described him to Lucas. He agrees with Shiv's assessment of him because he basically just says the same thing. I do the corporate stuff. I look at the numbers. I cut costs. I move things around.
Yeah, as a manager, I think, I'm simple. I squeeze the costs and juice the revenue. Follow the boss. I digest strategy and implement, like for, cruises, for example, is shit gobbling and firefighting. Yum, 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 yum. Yes, and ATN is money. I'm cutting heads and harvesting eyeballs. It's pretty simple, really. I give the customer what he wants. I don't think it's my place to offer dietary advice. If they want red meat and boiling tar, then bon appetito.
Right.
The whole conversation is important, but especially those moments where Tom is describing himself. Lucas starts talking about Shiv and what the problem is. And basically she's being too bossy. Has her ideas and he's like, I have my own ideas. She's is a bit much, he says. And I like her. I want to sleep with her. And I think she wants to sleep with me. And this could get messy. And he's saying all this to Tom. Maybe instead of having the baby lady, I should have the guy that put the baby in the baby lady. So this is what we're dealing with here. But Tom speaks this language. He understands. He knows. And him acting like, hey, I'm just here for you. I'll do what you need me to do. He has said he is a pain sponge. He's used that exact phrase. And at some point, Lucas says to him, I need a pain sponge. So his pitch wasn't much of a pitch other than him just presenting himself as he is, factually, truthfully. And then you see Shiv, on the other hand, is really trying very hard. And she feels insecure.
Yeah.
And, she's trying to win him over. But Tom isn't really trying to win him over. He's just saying, here I am. Here are my qualities. If you want me, I'll do it. If you don't, I'm okay with that too. That's exactly what Lucas was looking for, was somebody that he would have power over and it wouldn't be a power struggle. Tom knows his place and he's not the alpha. But here we have Shiv who keeps trying to alpha the alphas and it doesn't really work for her. But Tom knows to not do that with Logan or any of the rest of them. When he is the alpha in the room, he certainly acts like it. But when he's not, he falls back. What is that? That's emotional intelligence. He has a lot of self-awareness and he has a lot of emotional intelligence. And I think, again, that is what makes him different than everyone else.
Mattson also asks him how he feels when he's not at work.
Yeah. And then he's super honest about that too. And he says, I worry all the time. It's all I think about. I eat, drink, breathe it. And I am up at night. I don't sleep. I am worried constantly about the success of what we're trying to achieve, basically, is what he's saying. But the amount of worry and the obsession with success is attractive to Lucas. I'm just so glad that Tom took this moment and was calm, or appeared calm, and answered the questions just being him and didn't really try to impress at all. He didn't put himself out there too much, and I think it just worked out for him.
And now we get some spycraft from Greg the Egg, and this is awesome. I wish they would have played like some kind of spy music over this. He is there. Like, all the guys, the Vikings are there. They're all there for this meeting, right? Only they're at the bar. People are coming over one at a time to talk to Mattson. So Mattson leaves the table and Greg comes over and he's like, what's going on? And Tom doesn't really tell him much. So what Greg does is I'm gonna find out. And so he goes to Google Translate and just fucking like Shazams the conversation between the Vikings and learns that Shiv is out. He doesn't know that it's Tom. All right. He just knows that Shiv is out and they think maybe it's Walter Guy or something like that. So who does he tell?
He tells Kendall. That's been his, go-to buddy. He's been riding that, both sides of the Tom and Kendall the whole time, really. Greg knows more than Tom right now.
Correct.
And
yes.
Knowing more than Tom is, this is how we're weaponizing, information. Greg is taking this information, using it well, and letting Kendall know. It's interesting to me throughout the series how many times Greg doing this kind of thing actually completely changes the course of things. And as insignificant as he is, as incapable and as much of an idiot as he is, he still winds up being somebody that is a wheeler and dealer.
We go back to the paradise where Caroline lives, and it turns out that Caroline did want her kids there to see them. And of course she wanted them to, come see Roman and see how he's doing. But actually Peter has a pitch with one of his friends and they're at dinner and here comes Peter, and all the margins on this are very good. They're very tasty. He says, as this is going on, Kendall's getting the phone call about this. Shiv's getting phone calls or shit going on. And we hear Roman has already been like fooled by this pitch. He wants to, he wants to buy into this. He's like, no, guys, listen to this. This is great. And we hear the guy who's doing the pitching talking about, now we can't, this is kind of almost illegal, but we can't get in trouble for it. So it's not a good idea. No matter what it is.
I want to fill in a little bit here, something we didn't see, but I would bet that if this was a real life story, the help that he received in his healing is there's a transaction happening.
Absolutely.
And he feels embarrassed and ashamed about crawling to his mom's and how he got there. So he will feel like he owes Peter something. If Peter sat and took care of him, Peter's an opportunist, right? So he would have Roman is a captive audience and he's taking care of him and whispering in his ear while he's taking care of him. And then Roman feels indebted to him and listens, and furthermore, like, yeah, I'll get him on board, sure. So it's like the scenes that we don't see are also, we could fill in and see how we got where we are now based on what just the typical patterns of these personalities are. Peter is not going to help Roman out of the goodness of his heart. He's going to use this like he uses everything at all times to try to get what he wants out of it.
The news that Shiv is out as CEO leads to an amazing scene, a series of scenes where the kids are galvanized for the first time since before their father died. they become a team. And this happens over a course of a couple scenes, right? Where, they don't know it's going to be Tom. They just think it's going to be Lawrence from Volter from season 1, or maybe someone else. And they have this conversations where they have to figure out, well, now we have to figure out who our CEO is going to be again. And Shiv yells over to Roman, "Hey, Roman, guess who Kendall thinks it should be? You'll never guess," And they have kind of an honest conversation with each other about what their father promised them.
When Kendall told Shiv this, he did it with kindness. He was kind to her. He seemed to feel sorry for her. He didn't treat her the way she treated him. She was gloating, haha, I win, blah, blah, blah. But when Kendall finds out, he pulls her aside, almost like he's telling her that someone that she loves has died, But that serves him, doesn't it? Things headed in the direction that he wanted them to go in because of the way that he approached her in that moment. If he had approached her differently, it's possible that they would have continued in their competition. But instead, both him and Roman are in this moment where someone is fucking with their sister. Okay. And so these are very complicated relationships. They are enemies, but they are also family. And one minute they're at each other's throats, and the next minute they're together to protect each other. There's a saying, me against my brother and I against our cousins and us against the other tribe. This is how family works, right? In these types of survival mode situations. But it's interesting to me how they go from being combative with each other, then they see that Shiv has been used, Shiv has been misled.
This is awesome, though, because we have these tender moments between each other, then these honest moments where, they each kind of talk about how their father promised them this position, right? And Kendall kind of takes the cake because, he says it happened to him when he was 7. And he's like, he probably shouldn't have done that. But then he goes on to say, but he told me that first.
Right. Instead of recognizing, oh, he used all of us. Oh, he fooled us all. And it was all manipulative ploy. Narcissistically abusive people use divide and conquer strategies with their children. They just do. They treat their kids differently. They pit them against each other. They fan the flames of competition. They don't want the kids to get along. And Logan especially did not want his kids to get along. So each one of them were told that they were the successor. And it's just coming out just now. They're all like, no, I was told. No, I was told. But you're right. Kendall wins because he was the youngest when he was told.
He also wins because they're on the beach, all 3 kids, and Kendall swims out to this little thing, this little island that they probably swam out to 1,000,000 times when they were children, if this house has been around that long. And they have an awesome moment where we have, Rome and we have Shiv talking about what's going on here. And they finally get on side, and then they swim out together out to the thing, and they all have a little moment out there, and they decide it's going to be Kendall. And now they're all on the same team. And they regress to childhood, and they have this awesome scene in the kitchen where they anoint Kendall with this disgusting concoction, and they make their mom mad.
And what does it show? It shows gluttony, waste. It shows a complete lack of empathy for the people that have to clean up the mess. They're wasteful, they're gluttonous, and everyone's cleaning up after them. They don't care what messes they leave. And they don't care about doing something that hurts someone that they love. Like, that's gross and terrible to make your sibling or peer pressure your sibling into doing something like that. I mean, I would never do that to myself.
You wouldn't make me drink a jar of, like, what did they put bread, they put hot sauce in, they put all kinds of weird liquids, and then Shiv spits in it. So gross.
They're being silly, they're being childish. And it's called Fit for a King. A meal fit for a king is the name of this game. They have names for their different, there's the dog pound or war on the floor. And they're all very much like cruel, bullying type games. but fit for a king. So a king now is Kendall, and he's going to wear the crown, which is they, pour it over top of his head. And it is funny to watch. At the same time, it really shows where they are developmentally. This is what they revert to when they're just letting it all hang out, is they act like little kids in a semi-destructive way, and a little bit of a harmful way. But they come together, they're making fun of Peter. Mom comes in and is like, don't eat Peter's cheese. So now they're definitely going to eat Peter's cheese.
Roman licks it all over.
We see them sort of come together. The move that they're about to make, they're calling the reverse Viking.
They get a call from Connor, and Connor's doing the this like sticker auction for Dad's things, right? And this scene is hilarious because Connor has this big long speech about how, the way that this sticker auction works. And of course, we are the primary bereavers, but the secondary bereavers are in the other room, and they show, and it's like Carrie and a bunch of people look out. It's so funny. And one of those bereavers is actually Tom. So he is there. We learn the fate of Connor and Willa. They are separating, but they have a very positive spin on it.
They think that Jared Mencken has won the election, and he's going to have some position. I think it's Slovenia is where he's going to go. And so he'll be there and she will be in New York, and they're going to just live separately, and that's okay. And yeah, he's like, keeps saying, we're very excited about this. This is going to really revive our relationship. But we know that Willa is just going to be a kept woman, and he's going to be funding her, doing whatever she wants, living this fancy lifestyle, writing her plays and refurnishing Logan's amazing apartment with her, what was it, a cowhide couch?
Yes. And that's why they're getting rid of all the stuff, because she wants to start over there. She wants this to be her place, and Connor's all for it. But then one of the most heartwarming but just devastating moments of the whole this whole series, they go into the dining room and they have what Connor calls a virtual dinner with Dad. And it's a video of Connor, Carrie, Logan, and the Sharks, and then some mystery person who is filming, who I don't know who it is, probably Hugo or somebody like that. We don't know. And they are having dinner, and Logan is charming and entertaining, and they're singing songs and doing poems, and Connor is making fun of his dad, and his dad's laughing, and it is what none of them had with him except for Connor, and they all hold hands like, this is what we're missing, is this. They never got it.
They didn't get that version of their dad. And to see him, first of all, on a video after they've been avoiding their grief and focused on everything else but that's got to be really hard. But also seeing him be this warm version of himself that they never got to see. It's almost like they were little kids waiting outside his office door again. They're never on the inside. They're always looking in from the outside.
But he can't yell at him anymore. So they all hold hands and cry. And it's a touching moment. But like I said, it's also devastating. It's the last moment of harmony we see, on this show. Tom is there, and he meets up with Shiv, and they have a conversation, and Shiv is furious, and she's like, this guy Mattson is not going to pick me. And Tom's like, oh, really? Well, what we didn't see is that Tom's already been chosen. He's already the person. And so this is when Shiv finds out. She is furious, she's hurt, and she storms off and tells her brothers.
Tom is trying to do her a kindness, but also he knows that she's going to find out. She did just call him not that long ago to see if she wants to get back together. She is carrying his baby. He kind of acts like he doesn't know anything at first, but then he's like, I think you should know that it's me. Man, that really pisses her off. She's really upset about that. I think especially since she doesn't really respect him in that arena. Even though she describes him in the way she describes him as a way of putting him down. Like he's just corporate matter. He's an interchangeable part. She thinks she's putting him down in a way, but that's kind of what is necessary in that position, is someone who isn't going to be pushing their own agenda like that she would, right? And she really has kind of screwed herself over here. At the same time, has to recognize, oh yeah, this makes sense.
Well, she throws her temper tantrum, and Tom also throws his own temper tantrum because he learns that Greg told Kendall about the switch from Shiv before he told Tom. They have a confrontation in the bathroom.
Yeah, Tom is real angry at Greg for being the leak. This could have gone a different way. I don't know if Greg had a preference as to which way it would go. He just wants to make sure that he lands on the right side of things. But it starts to get violent, and Tom starts punching him. But guess what? Greg punches back for the first time. Greg stands up for himself and defends himself. And you can see Tom. Remember, Tom knows when he's outgunned. He didn't just keep fighting. He's not Roman throwing himself in the street to get beat up and 20 stitches in the face. He doesn't want to have a black eye. He doesn't want stitches. He's into self-preservation. So if backing down is self-preservation, that's what he's going to do. So Greg stands up to him. Tom's smart. He backs down, and then he leaves the bathroom. But that's the first time we've seen Greg really puff up and kind of win an interaction.
When he told Kendall, Greg did, he said, hey, I have something incredible, earth-shattering, could you give me something amazing? And Kendall turned that around on him. He says, well, if you give me something amazing, I'll give you something incredible, right? And so Greg's been promised something throughout all this, which he won't get in the end. It's time for the big board meeting. It happens in this office where all the walls are glass and there's space in between the doors. So everyone and everything that's about to happen, everyone can see. So the first crazy thing that happens is Roman sees Jerry arrive. And again, he can see her through the glass. She can see him, and he loses it.
Yeah, he's very triggered by seeing Jerry. He's like, why is she here? She can't be here. I can't have her here. Roman so easily caves, like he folds. He's like you just, that's all it takes. And he's just done. Seeing Jerry for some reason. And I think, one of the last things that he talked about with his dad was his dad telling him to fire Jerry. And he goes and carries that out, but then his dad dies, and there's no one there to back him up for what Logan sent him to do. And he had that inappropriate situation. He's sending her dick pics, like her showing up destabilizes him. He is looking at the top of they have one of those, fancy booze carts. It's a mirrored cart, and he sees his face, and he says to Kendall, why isn't it me? Why isn't it me? And Kendall kind of feels sorry for him, and he goes to hug him, but he does something really strange that a lot of people may not understand. He grabs him and he squeezes him so hard that it's really painful. He's pressing on the wounds in his face, and it's even opening up the stitches. What's happening there is he's trying to calm him down because he sees that he's losing it, and Kendall can't have that. Mm-hmm. So this is Kendall knowing how to control his brother. He's been playing Roman like a fiddle the whole time, but he knows that Roman seeks pain, and that's what makes him feel better. That's why he went into that crowd to get beat up in the first place. When he was missing and went to his mom's, they had theorized that he was at a BDSM
spank dungeon. Is what
spank dungeon, right? So they know that pain brings him pleasure or calms him, and Kendall just administers a dose of pain, and it does calm him down. But now he's focused on his stitches. Everything's bleeding, so he has to proceed, but it kind of takes him out. And I think Kendall thinks, okay, secured Roman, check. But then we're now at a tie, and it's time for Shiv to vote, and she needs a minute.
She seems to make a realization, and I feel like that I've read a lot of people question what happens here. They're not really sure why Shiv changes her mind here. She's having to make a choice between her brothers, her family, legacy and all that, and then her immediate family and legacy, which would be Tom and what's going to be the future of Tom and their child, right? And then these selfish, brothers on the other hand, right? And so she also is making a realization about Kendall as well.
Yeah, and when she does, I think that she's just weaponizing that information in the moment. I don't think she realizes, I don't think she's really saying, hey, you killed someone, Kendall, and that's why you can't do this. I think she's using it to try to disarm him, weaponizing that knowledge, and then it really hits him hard. And then what he does next is what secures her decision. He might have been able to persuade her, but she just pushed the right button in throwing that in his face and saying, you can't be it because you've killed someone.
Shiv is gone and the two brothers have gone after her. And again, everyone can see all this. They're a few offices away, but everyone can see this. Roman asks, well, which one? What do you mean? You've killed so many people. You don't know which one? And he goes, oh, you mean the kid? Yeah, there was a kid. Yeah, there was a kid, but I wasn't in the car. And he tries to gaslight them, but they know what he acts like when he's doing that, and it immediately blows up in his face. When they call him out on this, he reacts violently.
Him and Roman get into it, and Roman, I feel now, is fighting, and he's trying to draw the attention of Kendall in order to let Shiv go do what she has to do. In a way, he's kind of stepping in the line and taking what Kendall's going to dish out, playing to his strengths. So he's kind of shielding Shiv now in this moment. But yeah, I mean, Kendall loses it. And he basically says, if I don't get this, I will die. He doesn't flat out say, I'm going to kill myself. But in other words, I don't know who I am without this. This is my entire identity. And if I don't get it, I am worthless. And I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't think I will survive.
Before he goes nuts and attacks Roman's face specifically, he attacks his face and goes after the stitches and his face eggs. He goes after those, which is pretty messed up. Caroline would hate that. He screams in their face. One of the best lines of the whole show.
I'm the eldest boy. I am the eldest boy.
You're not. Which he isn't. He is not. It's so awesome. He is so delusional. And he assaults Shiv too. Shiv doesn't come out of this unscathed. She gets shoved and pushed into a door or something like that while he's attacking Roman. And it is nuts. Shiv goes in and she votes to sell. And Kendall loses it again.
There's a moment with Kendall and Roman that's really important. And Roman's just sitting on the table after the scuffle. And Kendall's in there. And Roman says,
we are bullshit.
Logan used to say, not a real person. You're not real people. He meant something different by that. In other words, you're not people that matter. When Roman's saying this, he means it in a way of none of this matters. None of it's actually important. And we're all standing on shaky ground here. There's nothing solid under any of us. We're all bullshit artists. You're a bullshitter. I'm a bullshitter. This is all bullshit.
A bullshit artist.
And I thought that was really meaningful for Roman to recognize and point out to Kendall. Not that it mattered to Kendall, not that it changed anything, but it really did show that maybe Roman is tired of all of this. He might be kind of done. And that was the last scene where we see Roman. He's sitting in a bar by himself, sipping on a martini, and he just takes a sip and he just sort of smiles. It's over now. The pressure's off. The power struggle is done. That whole Succession game he's been playing his whole life. He doesn't have to worry about it anymore. And I think he has a sense of satisfaction, or maybe even a sense of peace, that he can kind of walk away from that now.
I think he's accepted his father's death as well. I think that's part of what this was as well. And realizing that his family's bullshit and maybe they're toxic and he should get away from them. I hope he continues to do that. Maybe he could someday get better. That's the last time we see Roman. The last time we see Shiv, it is amazing. This is one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. We see, Tom get anointed by, without, instead of the king's crown or whatever they called it, it's an actual handshake and a check and signatures and all this stuff, right? That's going on for the press. And then he goes downstairs. He gets in a black SUV and Shiv gets in with him. And he holds out his hand and she puts her hand in his hand. He's now leading. He's now the alpha. He's succeeded. You know what I mean? He's now the father of this family. And that's a very important part. And you can see Shiv is subservient to him now. She's submitted to him and she's no longer, trying to outdo him in this moment.
Yeah, the power struggle between them, at least on this front, is over. She doesn't fully put her hand in his hand. She just kind of sets her hand on his hand, but it's still progress for them. He puts his hand out like, are we doing this? Do you submit? And she's, yes. We also see Kendall. The last moments that we see Kendall, he is got Colin following him, and he's just despondent and wandering through a park, and he just looks lost, and he goes and looks out over the water like he always does. That's his place of peace and death and rebirth. I'm sure there's so much that he gets from that. It's interesting to see Colin following him and almost seeming a little concerned about him, because Colin used to follow Logan when Logan would take his walks. You'd see moments where Colin's just kind of hanging in the background looking out over Logan. So maybe Kendall didn't get the CEO position, but he did get Colin, and he's still a billionaire, and he still has all his stuff and things. He still has his children, not really, but you wonder what's going to be next for him. We don't know, but he wasn't smiling like Roman, and he wasn't walking away with some consolation prizes like Shiv. I wonder, will he fight them in some way, try to come after them later, build his own thing and try to destroy them? Will he be able to let go of this and move on? Who knows?
That last scene to me shows that Kendall doesn't have any friends except for the guy that follows him around that he pays, just like his dad. That's what it meant to me, is that he is alone now. And he's burned every bridge there is. And the only person left willing to hang out with him is somebody who he's got dirt on, who he has hired, right? That used to follow his dad around and helped him get rid of bodies and shit like that. So
right. I mean, their relationships are bullshit.
They are bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Are we bullshit?
I don't think so. I hope not. We're not really in a power struggle.
No.
There's no kingdom to fight for. Well, Andrew, we've spent a couple of years doing this project together, and we just completed the last episode of the series Succession. What do you think now that we're wrapping it up?
I love this show. I'm so glad we went through it with a fine-tooth comb, and it's always going to be one that I'll associate with you. And I enjoy the show, but honestly, I don't really care what show we're talking about. I just enjoy doing this with you. It's a lot of fun. I learned a lot about myself, about relationships, about family dynamics, and what's good and what's bad. And I think that's really, the important part of this series is what can we learn from these dastardly, people that don't seem to know how to function. Can we learn this? Can we apply some of these things in our real life? And I certainly have. What about you, Mandy? What have you enjoyed about this?
Well, I like the series so much, and when I was watching it multiple times, there was so much of what I do and specialize in that I could see happening with these characters, but at the same time, they're billionaires, and so you kind of, I don't know, it makes it more approachable somehow. It's not as triggering for survivors, possibly because they're all okay. You know, they're not okay, but they're okay. They have their basic needs met. They're emotionally not great, but sometimes survivors of abuse are super empathetic and they have a hard time analyzing things from an objective perspective when they see others suffering. And so when we see super billionaire rich people having problems, you know, poor people love that. That's something we really like to watch, is what it's like for rich people and what their lives are like. But I will also want to say that often survivors of abuse feel really alone in the sense that people around them who haven't had those experiences truly don't believe that humans can be so evil, humans that they know, humans that aren't billionaires, that aren't serial killers, that aren't on TV. Normally when we're watching something super evil, it's on the television set and we think it's isolated to fiction or something that's very far away. But the truth is that evil people, people who are narcissistic, people that lack empathy, people that are parasitic, people that are opportunistic, and they view other humans as numbers or as resources to be taken or something to be controlled and used. They live right next door. They're in our families. They are around us and close to us, and they do hurt people that we know. Calling attention to these tendencies, behaviors, and patterns that we see on the show. The purpose of it is for people to take that and look at their own lives and their own histories and say, wait, somebody gaslit me. Somebody was weaponizing my personal information. I never said that that was okay to share. Oh, wait, divide and conquer? That's why my siblings and I don't get along. You know, that you can identify in your own world possibly these patterns that are happening. Or if someone you know says they were abused, that maybe now you might believe them. Because these aren't things that are just unique to rich people. They exist on the entire planet, in every single culture, every single nation and society on the globe. These personalities operate the same, just in a different language. So as we walk away from this, for survivors, you're not alone. For people that don't know about it, you just learned a lot about it. What we really want to take away is the ability to identify it and to affirm those that have experienced it, with the hope that we can protect people that are empathetic and preserve those empathic qualities. When we try to battle these patterns and these types of people in our life, we think we have to become like them, that we should care less, we have to become cold-hearted. But the truth of the matter is, the thing that made Tom the most powerful person in the room was the fact that he was more human than the rest of them, that he had emotional intelligence, that he knew how to talk to people when he was supposed to and how to act in those right moments. He didn't walk around and gloat. The point is that we preserve our empathic nature, and that makes us more powerful. We have skills, we have qualities that they don't have and they'll never have. They're very stuck in who they are, and they can't change, most of them. They're very rigid in their thinking. They do tend to rise to positions of power, including being the leader of an entire nation more than once. They do tend to nest together and, you know, work together as a team while they also are battling each other. That's all very realistic. But it can also just be a really grumpy grandpa that's been a dick to the whole family their whole lives, you know, and they don't have money, but they've got the trauma, the generational trauma, and that's their legacy. That's the end of Succession. Thank you for watching or listening. Goodbye.